Hello, everybody. My name is Blake Robinson, and with me I have the Vermont Sportscaster of the Year, Michael Dugan. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, if you're ready, you want to jump into some questions?
Let's do it. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. So, first off, Michael, just kind of walk me through your path, how you got started in sports broadcasting, and just all your stops along the way.
Yeah, so going all the way back to high school, I wrote for my school newspaper beginning my sophomore year. And then our high school actually had its own FM radio station, 88.1, I want to say it was. Man, I can't even remember because I guess I'm getting old now. Um, but it had a very low reach just kind of within the district. And they had slots for students to kind of host their own shows after school and even on the weekends. And my buddies and I got involved, just kind of saying, hey, let's do it and talk shop for an hour or so each week. And we did it. We fell in love with it, and we started to sort of take it a little more seriously as time went on. We had full rundowns by the time we were second semester juniors. And um we sort of fancied ourselves the next, like, Mike and Mike in the morning back in the day. We had a lot of fun with it. And then I started writing more for the school paper, realized, hey, this is something I can sort of start to pursue once I get to college. And went to Indiana, graduated in 2019, and got pretty involved with their student television organization on campus. Indiana University Student Television, IUSTV is what it goes by. Ton of great opportunities there. We would cover football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, you name it. We were there. We had a couple different studio shows. I was able to host one of those for, I think it was 3 semesters in total. I got really lucky that I got that as a junior. So I got a lot of on-camera experience there. A lot of sort of video editing, video shooting experience. That stuff's super duper important. Can't stress that enough. I wish I had done even more of it when I was there, once I started my first job, which was in Biloxi, Mississippi, a station called WLOX. Started there after applying for jobs sort of nonstop once I graduated. And yeah, got my start down there, spent almost 3 years there, fall of 19 to fall of 22, and then moved up here to good old Burlington, Vermont in the fall of 22. And I've been here ever since.
So, you mentioned about writing, and that's kind of the foundation of it all. So, can you speak about how important that is with, building up from there?
Yeah, well, I mean, being able to write, and but that's another way of saying storytelling, right? That's sort of the gist of whatever you're doing within the realm of sports media. If you're in play by play, which I haven't done a ton of, dabbled with it a little bit, but not a lot. But you're telling the story of what's happening in front of you. If it's on the radio, it's what the viewers can't see. And if it's on television, you're sort of coloring in what's going on. And you're telling the story of what's going on. If you're on, local news like I am, and you're shooting highlights of a game, you're telling the story of the game. Okay, what was sort of the run that they went on in the second quarter to sort of put this one away, or the run they gave up in the third quarter to sort of block themselves out of coming back. Or you're telling sort of a longer feature story about a local kid that broke the state record for something, or a coach that's coaching while battling a personal battle, or something away off the field. It all comes down to storytelling. And whatever you're doing within the realm of sports media, whether it's writing or speaking, you're going to be telling a story of some kind. And being able to know identify what a story is, and finding creative and engaging, and when appropriate, fun ways to tell it, is what can really separate some of the good stuff from the great stuff that you see, that you read, that you watch, and all that.
Yeah, the versatility of it all. I mean, that's the most important thing, basically. But I want to talk, and you kind of alluded to it with your story. You're kind of the young buck. From the people I've interviewed, at least, the average age, you bring it down. And I'd
That's good
love,
to hear. That's comforting a little bit, because every day I feel something. I'm like, oh man, I am getting old.
well, when the joints start hurting, but I would love to know your insight, because this is an older profession largely, and you're getting into this young. So what is it like, being a part of it this young?
Yeah. Well, I think you get really close with some of the people that are near your age, really quickly. And my last job, there was only one other station in town, and their sports team was early 30s and below, so very young. The sports reporters around here are all young. So, I haven't had, a ton of experience. Or I should say most of my experience has been with people that are, you know, within an earshot or so of my age. But some of my friends that got into the business are, upon graduation have since left. So it's tough. It's a grind for sure. But I think if you have a real passion for it, for whatever it may be, whether it be the storytelling or going and shooting an exciting game on a random Tuesday, whatever it is, if you've got a passion for it, you could talk with people who just graduated or people who are retiring next week. It's sort of a unique business, and the hours and working holidays and working weekends. So everyone can kind of relate to some of the difficult parts about it, but the fun stuff is just as important. And yeah, been working with a lot of young people, and it's fun to sort of see everyone's coming from across the country to work at a certain station or a certain market for however many years, and then they move on to their next one, or they stay for the rest of their working career. But it's cool to see, cool to meet a lot of other young people that I didn't grow up down the road from, that share a similar passion. I think it's cool.
So again, you're young, you haven't had a lot of experience yet in this industry, but you've kind of seemed to have known you wanted to do this or had interest in this gig for a while. So was there a point in time, and maybe it hasn't happened yet or will never happen, a lot of people I've talked to never, that you realized, oh, I think I can do this, or I've got this, or this is definitely the right choice?
Um, that's a really good question. Um, I would say, well, I would say throughout my time at Indiana, I always had fun doing whatever it is that we were doing. So, the morning of one Super Bowl, I was, sitting courtside shooting one of their women's basketball games and was having a blast. Um, Thursday nights is when we would tape our stuff, and that was sort of what my week revolved around in our studio, when we would sort of tape our debate style show. And that was every Monday I would be like, okay, well, how are we getting ready for this? That was sort of my Super Bowl each week. I was just always counting down to that. So I would say I've always sort of had, I've always gotten excited, like, little kid excited for the big events and fun stuff. Um, but I would say professionally, to be honest with you, when I got um, a job offer, that my first job offer that I took, so down in Mississippi, when I got that offer, I knew I was pretty certain I was going to take it. And it was just kind of a moment of like, wow, my little reel that I just kind of scrambled together in college that I didn't think was all that, like, someone out there really believes in me, that I share a vision with and I kind of get along with. And we were able to gel throughout our conversation. So kind of having that connection and being like, okay, all these hours I put in school outside of the classroom, which wasn't anything crazy, but you do extracurricular stuff to sort of build the resume. Um, it's all paying off. Like, I'm going to actually do this for a living. So that was probably my first moment of like, man, this is pretty cool and this feels pretty good. And then every time you get to cover something out of the ordinary, you get a little bit of the pinch me moments, like, man, I really get to do this for work. Like, that's pretty cool.
Speaking of out of the ordinary, have you came across a moment where it was really unexpected? Like you kind of just were like, whoa, like along your journey so far?
In terms of like a story that I wasn't expecting to cover,
Just
or
anything that kind of took you by surprise? Good, bad, indifferent?
I would say, I wasn't fully ready for how crazy high school football Fridays can be. So here, in Vermont, our market range is pretty wide, but our late show doesn't start until 11. So our games kick off at 7, and no matter where we're coming from, whether it's a super long drive or not, we've got a little bit of time to get stuff together. But in Mississippi, our show started at 10, and all the games kicked off at 7. So we would go shoot as many games as we could, get back to the station, throw all the highlights together, and then sprint out onto the studio, 90 seconds before our hit time. I wasn't fully ready for that quick of a deadline. So luckily the first week that it happened, I wasn't on camera. I was shooting, and I was able to sort of watch what they did because I hadn't been through it before, because it was my first job, and I was watching it like, man, this is kind of hectic. Like, this this is crazy. But it was like a rush. You're like, okay, we got to do all this fun stuff. And you know, it's high school football. It's the best. It's just a total blast shooting those games and being in the environments. So that was sort of my first like, whoa, okay, this is a little different than, you know, going out and covering one or two things a night. You know, we're going out and getting 13, 14 games and trying to put it all together. So high school football Fridays were the first couple were a little overwhelming, but so worth it. Those are the best, really the best.
At that smaller level, you really get to know the players, the community, like everybody. Can you speak to maybe that kind of connection? Because everybody I've talked to, they love it. I mean, it's something you don't get at any higher level.
Yeah, it's super cool. You know, I remember when I first started seeing, um, you know, kids would, you know, they're taking videos of themselves on the news on a Friday night, flipping it, and then like tweeting at us and tagging us in all these posts. And it's like, thanks for the coverage, thanks for the highlights, and then, you know, they'd see you the next week and introduce themselves and thank you for covering their sports and all of that. And then yeah, you get to know them really well. So um, it's just cool to see, you know, these kids get so their faces just light up when they see themselves on the news. Um, it reminds you sort of how big of a deal it is to a lot of people. You know, you can get kind of caught up in the stress of it, I guess. You know, like I said, coming back to try to make deadline every Friday night, but yeah, always seeing how excited people are that you're at their game. How excited, you know, maybe an individual student athlete is that they made it on the news. Um, Always super cool, and it's always awesome to be able to be a very small part of the reason why, you know, they get to see themselves on the big screen and have that sort of reaction. And the connection's cool because it makes the storytelling easier too. You know, you start talking to them before a game and their coach is like, oh, you know, that kid's a 4.0 student, or you know, he does some community service on the side, and you get to know these pretty cool things that might lead to a pretty good story that you tell. So the connection makes the job a little bit easier. Um, and can open the doors to some pretty cool stories also.
You get to humanize the athletes and all those involved a lot more than you can. You know, at collegiate level, you still can, but especially at the pros, it's a lot harder to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's perfectly said. I think that's what I took 25 minutes just there trying to explain, and you summarized it in one quick sentence.
No, it was.
Yeah, you get to humanize them, and yeah, it's just awesome to just get to know the person that you're talking about a little bit more each week if you get to catch them pregame.
Yeah, I want to shift gears here. This is maybe my favorite question. It's a fun question. So, if you could cover any sporting event at any venue, past or present, doesn't have to be standing now. Do you have a dream combination in mind?
Past or present, that changes things. I was getting ready to say either the Summer or Winter Olympics or maybe the Masters.
Okay.
Um, but now that I can pick something that's happened, that makes me rethink things. Um, I grew up just outside Chicago, so I'm a Chicago sports fan, and I don't see many titles coming back home in the foreseeable future, given the general state of every franchise there. Um, so maybe going back to the Cubs World Series win to be able to cover that. Well, I might not have been able to take it emotionally, to be perfectly honest with
Yeah.
you. Um, yeah, I think being able to be a part of that professionally would have been incredible. So if I had to pick one going back in time, I'd probably say the Cubs winning the World Series in 2016, or maybe the Michael Jordan Bulls, which
Oh,
just predate me. Um, and then if it were just a general sort of maybe annual or semi-regular event, I'd probably say the Masters. Um, but that list is a lot longer, so I'll stop myself there before I talk myself into a different answer.
the Masters is a very popular answer. There's kind of this aura surrounding Augusta and just kind of the coolness of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of buddies who have actually covered it, and they talk about it nonstop, and I don't blame them because I would too. But yeah, I think sort of just how exclusive it is. You know, you can't really have your phone on the grounds, so you don't see a ton of fan perspective. It still sort of has that, you know, m- not quite mystery around it because we all know the magic of Augusta, but you know, you go in there and you're kind of cut off from the world and you enjoy it, and then you come back and it's just the stories. that people tell and you hear about it. And we have all these dramatic finishes. It seems like every other year at the tournament. It's sort of the welcoming to spring. So if you're outside of the, very small region of the country where it's nice almost year round, it's finally warm outside. You get to open the window while you're watching the sun, the final round. But yeah, I'd probably go with the Masters.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So, for anybody maybe like myself that wants to get into sports broadcasting, sports media business, an aspiring member, do you have any advice for them?
Yes. I would say while you're in school, um, do as much as you can take. So don't overwhelm yourself. Obviously, you've got to take care of yourself because school itself can be stressful. Um, so do as much as you can take on yourself, whether that be, covering as many sports as you can or doing play-by-play mixed with studio stuff if you guys have a studio on campus. Um, I would say sort of diversify your palette as much as you can handle while you're in school. Shoot and edit, shoot and edit, shoot and edit, always, always, always. Because there's an element to storytelling if you're shooting your own stuff, which far more often than not you will be. You can sort of add an extra layer once you get, really start to figure out, sort of the ins and outs of what editing software you use and the cameras that you guys use. You can add a lot of different visual elements to your storytelling, and that's what takes stuff from good to great. So that's what I would say. When you're in school, that's probably, I mean, I could talk a lot about what I learned when I was in school, which I guess is a credit to where I went to school. But I would say once you graduate or right before you graduate and you start the job hunt, I would say between now and then, keep in touch with as many people as you can. You never know what kind of connections they might have. Anyone from back home that might have any connection to the industry, ask them. They might have hey, my dad's friend is a news director in, Topeka, Kansas that'd be a wild connection if so, but you never know. You might know someone that knows someone and they might be able to help you down the line or they might be able to help you tomorrow. You know, a lot of it is luck to start out, which I'm sure you've heard and is probably not the most encouraging thing to hear, but you can sort of increase your chances of falling into a position of good fortune if you try to extend as many branches as you can, you talk to as many people as you can, you keep in touch with as many people as you can, because if they're not hiring at their station, they might know someone who's hiring at theirs, or they might know someone who knows someone. So I would say make as many connections as you can, stay in touch with them because they're going to be probably eager to help you at some point. And shoot and edit while you're in school and do as much as you can, have some fun too.
You said something that sticks out to me about luck. I kind of always say you got to put yourself into a position to find that luck, which, branching out into as many things as you can. So that definitely resonates. I think that's very important.
Yeah. At the end of the day, luck is not entirely in your hands. That's what luck means, right? But if you just kind of isolate yourself, the odds of you running into somebody that has a connection are low unless you go out for a lot of walks in a lot of different populated areas. But if you're talking to people and, making connections whenever possible and networking whenever possible, you increase your chances of, instead of having two connections, you've got, 22. Well, you've got a better chance of one of them working out if in that bigger pool. That's just math. So yeah, you can't really create your own luck, but you can sort of set yourself up for a better chance at falling into some luck. That's probably what I would say.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, I'm gonna, one last thing. I'm gonna hand you the microphone here. The floor is yours. Whatever you want to say, take it away.
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure. Usually when I have a microphone in my hands, I already know what I'm going to say. Yeah, I would say if you just if you're a student or an up and comer, or maybe you want to think about getting into this business, it really is super rewarding. It's a ton of fun. And even when you've got days or weeks or even month-long stretches where it just, you're tired or you've got other stuff going on, you've worked a bunch of late nights, it can be stressful, take a step back, and it can be at times difficult, but being able to appreciate what we do is a gift. It's a lot of fun. There are so many times where I get to just kind of be like, man, I really get to do this for a living. This is pretty freaking cool. It really is a lot of fun. You get out of it what you put in. It's gonna, it requires a lot of hard work, a lot of hard work, a lot of late nights, and some sacrifices too. But if your heart's in it, if you think about you might have a passion in it, pursue it. It's totally worth it. It's a blast. And you'll have some stories that you get to tell that stick with you. Like some of the first stories I told once I started still stick with me. I still think about some of these people that are, super inspiring or had an awesome story. You meet some awesome people. You get to see some awesome things. It's a blast. I'm super, super thankful.
Michael, you aced the off script segment. But that's all I have for you. Once again, congratulations, Michael Dugan, Vermont Sportscaster of the Year. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.